the growth that's happening in the womb and that DNA blueprinting that's being laid when a woman is pregnant affects not only that child, but that child's sex organs are developing then too. It's going to affect the next generation as well. So 2 generations.
All right, what is going on, world? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here with Stephanie Paplinskie of StrongHER Fitness.
Yeah.
She's actually doing some really amazing stuff here in the city of London, Ontario. And we recently just met because of a whole bunch of, we're experimenting with social media and how to optimize it as much as we can so we can reach a bigger following and actually help people here in the world. And we actually went up to Toronto together and we filmed a little video for a seminar that she was doing. And I actually learned a lot of interesting stuff about pre and post natal health and fitness. And there was one thing that hit really hard, and I really wanted to bring you on my channel to discuss this because I believe a lot more women need to, I don't know if they know and understand this, but the effects that they have, like, it's absolutely crazy to me. So if you would like to go into that, maybe introduce yourself a little bit more. She has been in a recent upcoming video.
Yeah, I've been in a few of your videos now, so that's good. I give you a shout out too.
Yeah. I'm loving the love that's going around London right now. It's awesome.
Yeah, we have a really good community here. It's awesome. And I mean, we met on a whim, essentially, right? Like I met with Jeff and you were there and I was like, okay, yeah, just keep filming me. That's no problem. But no, so as Peter mentioned, I work in prenatal and postpartum fitness specifically. I've been doing it for 7 years. So in those 7 years, I've worked with thousands of women, not only in London, but also across Canada because I lived out west for a bit and I also train a lot of women online. So I realized this actually at a conference that I was at last weekend is that I think I've trained more pregnant and postpartum women than any other person I know, with the exception of maybe my supervisor in the lab, because she's been doing this for about 20 years. So she's been working with women in a clinical setting, where I've been working with women in like a fitness and more of a lifestyle setting.
So would you say this is kind of a new thing where like health and fitness is being designed around pregnancy? Is this something new?
Yeah, I mean, until the late 80s, there was no physical activity guidelines for women when they were pregnant. So most women were told to be on bed rest. They needed the rest for their baby, and they could eat what they wanted, and baby needs the nutrients. But as science is emerging, we're realizing that that's not really ideal at all. In fact, it could be very detrimental to not only the baby's health, but also future generations. And, you know, I look at the state of our society right now in the sense that, you know, we have a high risk of diabetes, we have high cardiovascular disease, all these chronic diseases. And if you look, you know, 20, 30 years back, well, what were women doing during this time when they were pregnant? They were sitting, they were basically sedentary. And I think there's a connection there. I can't prove that, but we know now, and the science is starting to catch up and state the benefits of physical activity, not only for the mother, from, you know, overall just body weight, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? A normative gain during pregnancy. Like a woman is going to gain weight during pregnancy, right? But to keep it in a certain area so that she's not exceeding the normal weight for her age range. And a lot of women will say, oh, well, you know, 25 to 35 pounds is normal weight gain. I say, yeah, it is if you started at normal weight. If you started underweight, you can actually gain more. And if you started overweight, you're actually only supposed to gain like 15, maximum 20 pounds.
Oh.
So there's actually this range, but people always take kind of, you know, the main points I think that serve them and say, oh, I can gain a few extra pounds. It's like, well, no, you started overweight according to BMI and body composition, so you actually need to watch what you gain during your pregnancy. And so now that we're able to explore this a little bit more, because again, working with pregnant women is very difficult from an ethics perspective, depending on what kind of intervention you want to give them. So yeah, we're finally catching up and realizing that no, physical activity is important, especially during pregnancy, but now it's what exercises, how many reps, how much weight. These are things that we're now fine-tuning. And an exciting thing for us exercise and pregnancy researchers is that the new clinical practice guidelines are going to be released on the 18th.
Oh, wow.
So on Friday, right after marijuana is legalized in Canada. So I'm like, I think marijuana might steal our thunder a little bit, but I'm going to be posting about the guidelines on Friday.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I think there's definitely a lot more research that needs to be done in the area, but it's good that there's people out there doing it, and yeah.
So, as I like to discuss here on my YouTube channel a lot, is that life is situational, and how all these factors affect us over time is very important, and you can really manipulate it to affect you. So, you think it's very important to be doing like specific exercises while you're pregnant. Is this correct? And doing it differently during different phases of the pregnancy as well as pre and after, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's fascinating.
Yeah, I think I think it's just because I work with so many women. All I ever think about is exercise and pregnancy. And I'm doing, I teach at Western University and Fanshawe College here in London. And so one of the courses I teach is exercise for special populations. So I teach students about prescribing exercise for pregnant women. And then I'm also doing a PhD in the exercise and pregnancy lab at Western. So literally my whole life is pretty much surrounding and embodying exercise and pregnancy. And the only clients I train at the gym are pregnant.
Yeah.
Like that is the rule. Like I've had guys come up to me and say, I want to train with you. And I said, I'm sorry. Like you will never be pregnant. You can never train with me. Sorry. I believe that women should be strong and prepared for a few different reasons leading into childbearing, delivery, and then postpartum health and recovery. First being my question to a lot of women when they say, especially women who don't do resistance training, they say to me, well, why should I do resistance training? Why should I go to the gym during my pregnancy? And I say, well, labor and delivery can last anywhere from 2 to 72 hours.
That's great.
Like, how are you preparing for that? Right? So I trained athletes. I trained the varsity teams at Western, the football team. So as I was training the team and learning about that in my master's, I was taking this information and trying to think of how it would apply to the prenatal clients and postpartum clients I was working with. And what I realized is like labor and delivery, I've seen a lot of births too. It's a full body exercise. Like,
I can imagine.
It takes every ounce of strength to push a human out of you. It's crazy. And
so you can get injured during it too.
And women do. Women get injured a lot, and we'll touch on that in a second. But that's my main point. Is like, so when you're pushing, so think about maybe a deadlift. Let's compare labor and delivery to a deadlift right now, right? So full body exercise, compound lift, okay? Grip strength. You're grabbing something, overall strength. You're breathing, usually you're performing the Valsalva for a little bit, hopefully you're breathing during labor. But really it takes a lot. And again, thinking about that, 72 hour gap, a lot of women that I also train only like to do resistance training and don't want to do any cardiovascular training. Well, the literature and the science completely supports aerobic training as something that is almost necessary for a healthy pregnancy. Again, thinking about weight gain, even just risk of depression, even just thinking about blood flow to the baby, because people forget that, there's the mom and there's the baby, but there's also the placenta in there, and the placenta takes whatever the placenta needs first, because if the placenta is not healthy, then it's probably going to not create a healthy fetus or baby. So placenta takes all the good nutrients, all the oxygen first, and then baby gets what's left over. So people forget about that. So
and then it's like mommy, right?
Yeah.
Third.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's crazy. This is what I found fascinating when I was at your seminar recording for you. I was like, wow, like that's, so you can really not be getting enough nutrition, not enough nutritious vitamins and minerals during that time of your life. So.
Yeah, and even with exercise, so aerobic activity, so exercise that requires oxygen, so walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, those kinds of exercises. Those are great exercises because you're delivering oxygen to your body. Oxygen helps deliver nutrients, oxygen to the placenta of the baby. It also helps remove waste. So we need this system. We need the aerobic system. So I don't think that just doing resistance training is 100% beneficial and just doing aerobic training is beneficial. I think you need both. And so when I train women, I strategize based on what their training background was, what their baseline weight was going into pregnancy, how much weight they've gained in the first trimester, because I usually only start working with women in their second and third trimester, and we do a lot of strength exercises, but then near the end we start doing more endurance type stuff to kind of get ready for labor and delivery. And then labor and delivery, it's an inflammation response on the body. That's actually how it's triggered. A baby triggers an inflammation response. Water breaks, and then depending on the type of delivery, so vaginal versus cesarean, the type or trauma experienced during pregnancy, so depending if they have to use forceps or anything else that could happen, there's usually stretching of tissues, and even transverse abdominis, those deep core muscles that we have.
Stomach vacuum.
That you've trained a lot for your stomach vacuum experiment. Like, that's the muscle that holds everything in, that holds the uterus in and everything during pregnancy. So with that, what we see is like this muscle, even after a woman's given birth, her belly, she still looks like she's pregnant because that tissue is stretched. So then she needs to do some type of resistance training to kind of get that back into place. And everyone thinks crunches, but like crunches, V-sits, any flexion or rotation exercise are actually the worst things women can do postpartum. And then aside from that, tearing, scar tissue from cesarean or vaginal, all of that needs recovery and needs to take time to heal. Anecdotally speaking, the women that I've worked with that do resistance training or aerobic training who are exercising, specifically resistance training, during their pregnancies, recover faster postpartum. And I think it's because your body has adapted to that. Because basically when we exercise, all we're doing is tearing our muscles, right? And then rebuilding them.
It's like elastic, like you're pulling in, it's tightening back.
Well, you're actually ripping them. Like it's micro tears in the muscle that that's why you're sore from resistance training. But your body becomes very efficient at repairing these micro tears. And so I think it totally applies. Labor and delivery. When a woman has been training, her body is used to that repair and that muscle physiology and that response. And I've seen it. It doesn't always happen. Like some births can be very traumatic, but women I've worked with, their doctors, their midwives, even from a cesarean birth, can't believe how fast they're back doing the things that they would normally do in carrying their baby.
Wow, that's amazing.
I think it's awesome. Again, this is all anecdotal, but I've worked with enough women that I think I can say this.
No, and this is why I think Steph is a great example of like why life is situational, because again, as you were saying, they're depending on where the woman is at. You have to kind of dial things in and figure what is the most optimal thing to do for them. And also why I believe it's very important to have a coach and as someone who's an expert in the field of somewhere you're looking to improve in. Like you can do research all for yourself, but you'll never know how someone who's done this with thousands of people, they can just judge you and your body and your lifestyle and be able to give you a lot better of a plan. It's kind of like, with the whole social media thing, like when you're too involved in it or you're too involved in a video, you can't see the bigger picture. So to have someone there who's an expert in the field, I think it's amazing. Yeah,
and I train a lot of women online too, so I really, I get them to break down their day. Like, what does a day in your life look like? Because I want to know how their workouts are going to be affected, right? Because everyone has the best intentions to exercise, especially when they're pregnant, because they want the best for their baby. But life gets in the way, reality gets in the way. So it's every woman I train every woman differently. Every woman is trained completely differently. There's a lot of similar exercises, but if I have someone who's underweight to start, I actually put them more on a moderate resistance training protocol. If I have someone who's overweight, they do light to moderate and it's more circuit training style, so a little bit more aerobic. And I will say, when it comes to my time to actually plan to have a family, I'm going to start changing my workouts probably like 6 to 8 months prior, because what I've noticed too, and we've seen it a lot in the lab with women who have come in from a gym setting who do resistance training or CrossFit regularly, they tend to gain a lot of weight during their pregnancies. a lot compared to the average mom who doesn't do CrossFit or resistance training, maybe goes for walks or does like runs, things like that. But now let's go back to science. If you as a person went from resistance training, like you were a power lifter and you wanted to switch to become a triathlete, think about the physiological changes that does to your body and the time that it takes to actually transfer energy systems. Because you have to remember, it's always energy systems that we're using. So our body gets accustomed to using a certain energy system. Same with like keto, right? People switch to keto, their body starts to get used to using fat as a fuel source, right?
I felt that when I just started getting into the pool compared to running. Like, it was so taxing on my body. My body like was resisting it the first few times. Like, what are you doing to yourself? I was like shaking after.
I still, and this is why I need to start this summer. I said I was going to swim more, but last summer I randomly signed up for a triathlete. I watched, confession, I was watching the Fittest on Earth CrossFit documentary, the one where they had to swim for their first event, and I was drinking wine. And by the end of the bottle of wine, I had signed up for the Iron Girl.
Oh my God.
Because in my mind, I was like, I need to get better at what I'm not good at, but I'm not going to just go swimming. And I totally don't remember doing it. And then the next day, my boyfriend at the time was like, do you remember what you did last night? And I was like, I watched a movie. He's like, but what did you do after? And I was like, I don't know. What did I do after?
That's so funny.
He's like, you signed up for a triathlon. I didn't believe him. And then I checked my email. I was like, no. And then I had to swim. But swimming is so taxing.
So did you do the triathlon?
I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. I backstroked the whole thing. I was doing front crawl and I got kicked in the face and I was like, screw this.
Oh, wow.
And so, but like the swim was the worst. The bike and the run, I killed.
Yeah.
Like I just killed it. If I would have like done better on the swim, I would have played.
But the swim's the start, right?
Yeah.
So almost like taxing.
Yeah, but even just swimming in general is just so taxing.
Yeah.
Like it's just the full body, horizontal aspect. Anyway, back to the point. If I was to find out that, so transferring energy systems. So women, again, CrossFit, very anaerobic in nature for the most part, very high intensity for the most part. When someone becomes pregnant, they're told no anaerobic, no Valsalva maneuver, no holding your breath, no heavy lifting. All fair, because all these things are going to deplete the body of oxygen and deprive oxygen to the body, which is going to deprive oxygen to the placenta, which is going to deprive oxygen to the fetus. So it makes sense physiologically. But when you have that style of training and now you basically are forced to switch to an aerobic-based style of training, regardless of whether you're doing resistance training or not, it's still going to be aerobic in nature primarily. Well, your body now has no transition period.
Yeah.
In addition, you have all these hormones that are like, a woman's body completely changes on every single level cellularly during pregnancy. Every single level.
That's crazy.
And so think about transitioning energy systems for exercise, so for energy, for fuel, and then you have all these hormones that are now totally changed. Like your body just does this 180 of like everything that, like women's bodies are already really like very intricate. Now you add in pregnancy and it's just a whole other ballgame.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that women who do resistance training tend to gain excessively. And I think a really good way to combat that would be, if you're planning on getting pregnant, start to incorporate more aerobic style and aerobic based training into your day-to-day life. And that's what I'm trying to do even right now. Like just go for a run once a week.
Yeah.
Try to get to the pool and go for a swim, or just go for a walk. Like anything like that you can use and utilize a different energy system, specifically more aerobic in nature. I think women who become pregnant will see less weight gain. And again, anecdotally speaking, but I think if we think about it from a physiological standpoint, it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's amazing because you guys can see how passionate Steph is about this stuff. But like when a pregnant woman goes to a doctor and asks them like, what kind of physical activity should I do? They're like, what do they say? They're just like kind of like,
the funny thing
they're
is
just happy they're doing anything.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Like, and that's the thing. Like, there's something called the Paramedics for Pregnancy, and it's a free screening tool for any trainer or any person who's pregnant, and it's actually supposed to be administered by the doctor, but doctors don't administer it. So what I do with every single client that I have who's pregnant, who wants to train, whether with me, with someone else, online, whatever, is we go through the Paramedics for Pregnancy in detail. and I ask them all these questions that are on it, and it's questions from like anything from prior pregnancies, so like how many prior pregnancies she's had before this one, how many miscarriages, because if I have a woman who's had 5 miscarriages in earlier pregnancies, I'm probably going to tell her that the best thing she should do is just maybe go for a walk every day, like until that 20 to 25 week mark, when we know baby's like okay. Yeah, because it's just too high risk. And unfortunately enough, this questionnaire and the screening tool, it has to be signed off by their doctor. So because I have a conversation with them, I know exactly what they want to do, I know exactly what their exercise intention, but most doctors, they don't know what certain exercises are. Granted, London is really great. We live in we're very fortunate. A lot of the doctors actually in this city, I went to school with, so they know me. So they're like, so they actually say, well, there's this trainer at Hybrid. You should go talk to her. And it's funny because some of the women who have gone to see them are actually from Hybrid. And so they're like, oh yeah, Steph. Like, we know Steph. We're meeting with her next week. And they're like, okay, great, because she knows. So yeah, it's just unfortunate. But again, doctors are so amazing because they know so much about everything. Right? Like, and they're there when we need them, they're there for what we need them. But yeah, when it comes to things that are a bit more specialized, like exercise during pregnancy, a little bit more specialized, right? Yeah, I think you need to definitely go to someone who knows what's going on. And to be quite frank, there isn't a lot of people out there like that. And especially people who have not only the hands-on experience working face-to-face with clients, but also the clinical background and access to all these resources. And I mean, my colleagues in the lab are amazing. Like, everyone that I work with, everyone is so unique in their interests, but we all work together to help women during this really unique time in their fitness journey. And it's just awesome. And there's only like 4 exercise and pregnancy labs in the world. Yeah.
Well, that's why I think it's really starting to gain some traction. And like as you just mentioned, like, people are recommending you across the city, and now you're actually going around the world. You're going to Germany, or just like in Baltimore giving a talk. So
I know.
This is obviously something that the world needs and wants, and it's going to be coming. I think it's going to be getting a lot bigger. So thank you so much for coming on here and talking about this. I'm not sure if we touched on it, but
the future generations.
Yeah, because that's one of my biggest things, is that like we in the society are like YOLO, just do whatever you want. And I think there's a lot more to consider, and a lot of what I find is a lot of younger women are like, well, I'm not gonna have kids, so it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna do whatever I want. And then 5-10 years later, things change, your mind changes, and literally things that you did in those 5 to 10 years could have a huge effect, right? So
yeah, it's hard because I mean, there's the maternal and there's the paternal aspect, right? Because genes come from both sides. So I think as a society we should be cognizant of what we're doing and how we're preparing future generations. But I think was it Kylie Jenner that was pregnant? She was like, I ate my Big Macs. I was like, why are you advertising this? Because from a role model perspective, this is just telling young women who are pregnant that this is okay.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't know the status of her pregnancy. I know that I've trained a lot of women who, they get pregnant and they just go off. Like food, like they were healthy eaters, healthy lifestyle. They still continue to exercise, but they eat what they want. They're eating all this sugar and this fat. And it's hard because the body craves certain things too. Like women tend to crave a lot of carbohydrates. And that's like, I wonder why. I wonder why. But yeah, I think what we need to realize is that the growth that's happening in the womb and that DNA blueprinting that's being laid when a woman is pregnant affects not only that child, but that child's sex organs are developing then too. It's going to affect the next generation as well. So 2 generations. It's why, you know, when you're screened for diabetes, well, did your mom have it? Did your grandma have it? You know, you go up the chain because there's that genetic predisposition. Can we combat that with diet and exercise and lifestyle factors? Absolutely. But I think if you want to give, and you know, I think, because I'm like a hunter-gatherer type, I'm like, I want my kids to have strong genes. Yeah. Right? Like, well, we've kind of cheated Darwin's survival of the fittest, right? Because even, side note, so this is all I think about is exercise and pregnancy. Yeah, this is another tangent. So local anesthetic was created, in the 1880s? I believe somewhere, it wasn't too long ago.
Okay.
So prior to local anesthetic, many women, first of all, from a childbearing perspective, first of all, you had to be able to be fertile to become pregnant, okay? So most
Is
women,
that like a rare thing? Is that like there's a certain percentage of the population that is just infertile? Is that becoming more of an issue? Do you know?
it is, I do believe it is. I
And do you
can't,
think it's because of this several generation depletion of hormones? And that's my theory.
There's a rabbit hole we could go down for sure.
Maybe another video.
Maybe we'll do that in another video in a couple of weeks. No, I do think there's merit. I think that from a genetic standpoint, some women are meant to are going to have an easier time bearing children than others. But if we look back, even just like 1500s with kings, and you know how they had wives who couldn't bear children. Like it was an issue back then. Now we have in vitro, we have other things that can kind of help. However, where was I going with this? Okay, so we've kind of cheated survival of the fittest, because now with local anesthesia, we are able to have cesarean births. We are able to kind of like knock women out if we have to like have an emergency surgery. Back in the day, you couldn't do that. So if a woman,
unfortunately, it would just like lead to death or like serious injury.
So women, if they were fertile, then would have to be able to carry the baby to full term, deliver the baby, which many women used to die in childbirth, and then so if they died in childbirth, okay, if they didn't, okay, great, there's the baby. Then the baby would have to survive.
Yeah.
Like if a baby survived to the age of I think 5 and then 10 and then 15 and then past the age of 30, they were good. But I recall a story, actually Shannon would know, Jeff Wybo's wife, because she's a history buff, but I think she posted something on her Instagram about this king and his wife, and they ended up having like 15 kids, but only 3 survived. Yeah. And so think about that from an evolutionary perspective. That doesn't happen anymore. Anyone who wants to get pregnant or wants to have a baby, I mean, a lot of women still and couples still struggle, but more women are having babies than ever before.
Yeah.
Right? So I think if there's a time and there's a need for it, it is right now.
Yeah.
To start implementing healthy lifestyle behaviors, eating healthy, exercising, because we are literally affecting future generations.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary in a way when you kind of, I don't know, you walk down the street, you see someone who's like 400 pounds and they have like a little kid with them, and you're like, wow, like this kid is now, even if they do the best that they can for themselves, that next generation is being affected by that. And it's like, I feel like this stuff is not common knowledge. It's not being spread around enough. Like it's starting.
I try. That's why I'm a teacher.
This is why I think it's amazing. I want to show more people like you, because I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. You're bringing awareness to this kind of stuff.
Thank you.
And now, so you kind of said how like some women will gorge out. It's like this mental switch goes off, and I'm like, what are you doing? And it's also, I question, like, you know, like a lot, we're doing a lot more drastic different diets and lifestyles, like keto, vegan, all this different stuff that we're starting to do, and it's still somewhat recent that we're actually beginning to scientifically study these long term.
Yes.
So I question, you know, how much of this is having an effect on pregnancy, on the next couple of generations, all these different diets and lifestyles we're doing. And I think you're doing a great job by just trying to bring awareness to it and trying to teach what you think is the most optimal depending on that person's unique situation in life. So
it's everyone's so unique, right? Every woman's different, every pregnancy is different, every child is different, so you can't give like a cookie cutter answer to people. Like I can't, like people who like just hand out like a custom program I'm just like you can't do that. Like teach, that doesn't help anyone. Like teach people the whys, teach people the hows, and then let them make their own decisions, because at the end of the day, I can't tell a woman what she should or should not do with her body, but if she asks me for my advice, I will give her my clinical recommendations and my expertise.
Well, you're definitely an expert in the field. Thank you so much for coming on my YouTube channel.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys, for checking it out.
Yeah, definitely go follow Stephanie, StrongHER Fitness on Instagram as well.
Or Stephanie Paplinskie. I opened up my profile now.
Oh, you did? Okay,
perfect. So you can see all aspects of
both of her Instagrams will be in the description box below. Go check out her YouTube channel as well, because she's going to be traveling around the world, doing this stuff around the world. You guys have to follow along her journey.
You have to come with me. I need someone to record it for it. Awesome.
Great. Well,
thanks so much, Peter. Yeah, this was fun.
We'll see you guys in the next video.
Bye.